Okay, hopefully you have already watched the video about why we have the quadratic formula. Now we're going to show how to use the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula starts from you have to have a quadratic in standard form. So something is equal to 0. To solve for and find x, you can use the quadratic formula. So x is the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And you'll notice this piece under the radical, the b squared minus the 4ac, that's your discriminant. So when you take the time to find the discriminant from the beginning to identify how many solutions you have, you're already finding a piece of the quadratic formula. So we're going to go through an example. We are just going to use the quadratic formula so you can see how it works, and then we're going to check it on the calculator. So our quadratic equation is 0 equals x squared plus 5x plus 6. So a is 1, b is 5, c is 6, and then we're going to find our discriminant so that we know, do we have no solutions, one solution, or two solutions. So we have b squared minus 4 times a times c. So I have 25 minus 4 times 1 is 4 times 6 is 24. So I have 25 minus 24, which is 1. So my discriminant is positive 1. So I should have two solutions. If you were like trying to go through your list of different ways to solve this, so I know I have two solutions. Could I solve this by undoing the order of operations? No, because I have a b value. Could I just pull out a greatest common factor? No, because it's 1. Could I do a factor box? Yes, because my discriminant is a perfect square. So anytime you end up with a discriminant that is a perfect square, you can use a factor box. Because 1 times 1 is 1, so 1 itself is a perfect square. But we're not going to go through and use the factor box. We're going to show you the quadratic formula. So you start from your template. It's set equal to 0, so x is the opposite of b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. If you want to start your work from there, you can, but if you actually took the time to find your discriminant from the beginning, you can actually start from this step. The opposite of b plus or minus the discriminant all over 2 times a. You can start your work from right here. You'll notice you have a plus and a minus sign in here, which means you actually have two different problems to go work on. One of them where you're adding the square root of 1, and another where you're subtracting the square root of 1. So this is how you're generating your two solutions. So I have the opposite of 5 plus the square root of 1, all divided by 2. And I have the opposite of 5 minus the square root of 1, all divided by 2. So these are my exact answers. They may be decimals, they may be whole numbers, but those are my exact answers. Maybe not in simplest form. And then we're going to type them into the calculator. You want to be very careful when you do this. You need to make sure that you get your entire numerator grouped before you do your division. So on my calculator, I have to open up a parenthesis to start my numerator. Negative 5 plus second square root. And you'll notice I have another parenthesis that just opened. So I put in my 1, I close that parenthesis to say I'm done with the square root. I need to close my first parenthesis Say I'm done with my numerator, then divide by 2. And I get -2 as one of my answers. And then the other version, as long as I've typed all this in at once and I grouped the numerator, I can hit second enter, bring the problem back up, scroll back to my addition sign, make a subtraction, hit enter, and my second answer should be -3. So we did know we were going to get 2 answers from this because our discriminant was a positive number, and we can double check it by using the calculator. So you can plug -2 in for both of the x's, run it through and make sure you get 0. You can plug -3 in for both of the x's, run it through and make sure you get 0. Or if you have the ability to do it on a graphing calculator, you can type in your equation, graph it, maybe change your window, and you'll notice it's crossing at -3 and -2. And if you're not convinced, you could always trace it. So I could put in -3 for x, so it'll put in the -3 for me, and I'm getting out a 0. And then I can also put in the -2, and I get out a 0. So my 2 solutions are -2 and -3. And that is how you use the quadratic formula.